Dad's mistress gets pregnant, so he reveals the 5-year-long affair to Mom, but turns out he shot himself in the foot. I'm 17, and I swear the sound of my dad's car pulling into the driveway used to make my stomach twist like I was about to get caught doing something wrong, even when I hadn't done anything. That's what living with lies does to you. It rewires your body before your brain even catches up. When I was 12, I still thought my dad was a good man. He worked late, bought me basketball shoes when he remembered, and told dumb jokes at dinner. But it wasn't the hours or the job, it was her. Karen. I didn't know her name yet, but I knew the smell. That perfume, sweet, sharp fake, would cling to his jacket when he hugged me goodnight. My mom smelled like laundry detergent and coffee. Karen smelled like plastic flowers and secrets. The weirdness started small. He shaved on Sundays. He ironed his shirts for our office emergencies. He'd come home smiling at his phone, like some inside joke was better than his own family. Mom noticed, I could tell. She'd stop mid-sentence sometimes, just watching him scroll, lips pressed tight like she was holding in something too heavy to say. She'd still make him dinner, though. Still ask about work. That's the kind of woman she was, hopeful even when she shouldn't have been. The first real crack was my basketball game. Big one. Semifinals. He promised he'd come. I looked up from the court after every play, scanning the bleachers like a lost kid. His seat stayed empty. Afterward, Mom clapped too hard, told me how proud she was, but I could see it in her eyes too. That lonely kind of disappointment only someone who's been lied to for years can wear. Later that night, Dad stumbled in around midnight. Tie loose, face flushed, saying, "Sorry, son, big client dinner." I could smell the lie before he said it, the cologne, the lipstick smudge just below his collar. Mom noticed too. She didn't scream. She just went quiet, her eyes dead calm, like she'd crossed some invisible line inside herself. I remember lying awake that night, hearing their muffled argument downstairs. Words like trust and betrayal floated up the vents. Then silence, then the sound of glass breaking. That was the night I realized something was rotting underneath our house. Not just their marriage, him, the man who taught me how to ride a bike, who said real men protect their family, was sneaking around like a coward. And the worst part? I wasn't even angry yet. I was just scared, because deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. After that night, things didn't just go back to normal. They twisted. Dad got slicker with the lies, like he thought being predictable would make them believable. Late meetings, business trips, team building weekends. But we weren't stupid. Me and my brother, Ryan, he's 2 years older, started keeping score. Every time he bailed, every excuse, every time Mom pretended not to notice. It was like watching someone patch a sinking boat with tape. She still set a place for him at dinner, even when he didn't show. Still folded his laundry, still said, "He's just busy," when Ryan rolled his eyes. I think she needed to believe he'd come back around. That's what love does. It makes smart people delusional. The reveal came like a bomb we didn't see coming. He sat us down in the living room one night, calm as hell, like he was giving a PowerPoint presentation instead of detonating our family. Mom sat on the edge of the couch, shaking like she already knew. Then he said it. "I've been seeing someone. It's complicated." That word, complicated, felt like a slap. Mom laughed, but not the funny kind, the kind that sounds like a scream trying to escape. "How long?" she asked, voice steady but her hands trembling. 4 years, he said. Ryan stood up so fast the lamp beside him wobbled. I just sat there staring at the rug, because if I looked at his face, I might have thrown something. Then he said her name. Karen. "She didn't mean for this to happen," he added, like that made it noble. The next 10 minutes were chaos. Mom shouting, Ryan pacing, Dad begging everyone to stay calm. And then came the final nail. Karen was pregnant. He said it like he was announcing a promotion. Mom's face just broke, like something inside her cracked and spilled out right there on the carpet. Ryan muttered, "You gotta be kidding me," and stormed upstairs. I couldn't move. I just kept staring at Dad's hands. The same hands that used to fix my bike, tie my sneakers, hold Mom's waist in the kitchen. Now they were shaking like he knew what he'd done could never be undone. When Karen showed up days later, yeah, she actually came to our house. She smiled at us, smiled and said, "Your dad chose me because I make him happy." I wanted to punch a hole through the wall. Mom told her to leave, voice calm but shaking like glass under pressure. That was the night Dad packed his things. No goodbye hug. No, I'll make this right. Just a slammed door and silence. I remember staring at his empty spot on the couch after he left, thinking how something could look exactly the same, but feel like it had been set on fire. After Dad left, everything in our house started to fade. The light, the noise, even the smell. He used to wear this cheap aftershave that lingered in the hall. Now the air just felt stale, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Mom barely spoke for weeks. She went to work, came home, cooked dinner in silence. Sometimes I'd catch her sitting in the dark living room with a glass of wine, staring at the front door like she was waiting for him to walk back through it. Ryan called it ghost mode. He said she'd wake up eventually, but I wasn't so sure. Then came the paperwork. Divorce finalized in record time. Dad didn't even fight for anything, just handed it all off, like he couldn't wait to erase us. Within 2 months, he'd moved in with Karen. Within 6, he'd married her. The same woman who looked my mom in the eye and said, "Your husband chose me." The final insult came right after that. Dad adopted Karen's baby, even after a DNA test proved the kid wasn't his. He went to court, signed the papers, made it official. Ryan and I just stood there in disbelief. "He picked someone else's kid over us," Ryan said one night, punching the wall so hard his knuckles bled. He didn't cry, though. Neither of us did. It was like we'd run out of tears and only had anger left. Visitation started after that, every other weekend, by court order. Mom tried to fight it, but the judge said refusing could damage the father-son relationship. What relationship? The man was practically a stranger. The first visit was weird. Karen opened the door wearing this smug little smile, holding her baby like a trophy. "Come in, boys," she said sweetly. The house smelled like perfume and new furniture, sterile, fake, nothing like home. Dad came out from the kitchen acting like it was a sitcom. "Hey, champ, hey, buddy." Too cheerful, too forced. Dinner was unbearable. Karen kept dropping passive-aggressive comments between bites of salad. "We're a family now," she said, glancing at me. "It might take some getting used to, but I'm sure your mom will understand." I looked her dead in the eye and said, "You mean the mom whose husband you stole?" Dad's fork froze midair. Karen laughed, that fake, breathy kind of laugh that's all teeth. "Teenagers," she muttered, "so dramatic." Ryan kicked me under the table, whispering, "Oh, don't give her the satisfaction." But I already had. The damage was done. That night, when we finally got back to Mom's, she was waiting up. She didn't ask how it went. She just looked at our faces, saw the exhaustion, and pulled us both into her arms. For the first time in months, she cried. Quiet, broken sobs that sounded like they'd been waiting years to come out. And standing there, with her shaking in my arms, I realized we weren't just a broken family anymore. We were survivors of a wreck still on fire. The visits only got worse. What started as awkward silence turned into psychological warfare. Karen didn't just want Dad. She wanted control. Over him. Over us. Over everything that used to belong to my mom. Every time Ryan and I walked through that front door, she found new ways to twist the knife. If I stayed quiet, she'd say I was being disrespectful. If I spoke up, she'd tell Dad I was being aggressive. Either way, she won. One weekend, she set out matching family t-shirts for everyone. "We're doing a photo for the wall," she chirped. They said, "The Millers. One big happy family." Except we weren't all Millers. Not me, not Ryan, not the baby who wasn't even Dad's. Ryan refused to put his on. "I'm not part of this circus," he muttered. Dad snapped, "You'll wear it, or you won't come next weekend." Ryan tossed the shirt on the floor and said, "Perfect. Guess I'm staying home." That's when things really started unraveling. Next visit, Dad showed up at Mom's house with the cops. Actual cops. Claimed Ryan was refusing court-ordered visitation. The neighbors peeked out through their blinds while 2 officers stood in our driveway like we were criminals. One of them looked embarrassed, the other just tired. Ryan crossed his arms and said, "I'm not going anywhere with him." Mom tried to reason with them, voice shaking but calm. "He's 17, she said. "You can't force him." But they could, at least enough to scare us. Ryan finally got in the car just to stop the scene, eyes burning holes through Dad the whole time. When he came back that night, he didn't say a word, just slammed his bedroom door. Later, I found him sitting on his bed, fists still clenched. "He doesn't care about us," he said flatly. "He just wants to look like the perfect dad." And he was right. Everything Dad did after that wasn't about love. It was about appearances. The happy family dinners, the therapist he made us see, the fake apologies. Karen cried her crocodile tears in every session, saying, "The boys don't accept me. I'm trying so hard." The therapist bought it. Dad bought it. But I didn't. I could see the way she smiled every time he took her side, like she was keeping score. The final straw came in session 3. She pulled my backpack out of her purse, my backpack, and dumped it on the floor. A pack of cigarettes fell out, along with a crumpled $20 bill. "I found this in his room," she said, hand to her chest. I didn't want to believe he was stealing and smoking. My head spun. "I don't smoke. I don't even like the smell." Dad's face turned red. "Unbelievable. I knew your attitude was hiding something." I stared at her, cold, silent rage bubbling up. Then I remembered seeing her at 7-Eleven 2 nights before, buying that same brand of cigarettes. I walked straight to her purse, yanked it open, and pulled out the receipt. "Guess what, Karen? You bought these yourself." The therapist went pale. Dad froze. Karen stammered, "That's not—" I cut her off. "You planted them. You're pathetic." For the first time ever, she didn't have a comeback. I stood, grabbed my bag, and said, "You can play house without me." Then walked out. That was the first time I saw fear on her face. Not guilt. Fear. She knew she'd just lost control of the one thing she couldn't fake. Me. After I walked out of that therapy session, something inside me snapped. But not in the way they expected. It wasn't rebellion, it was clarity. For the first time, I saw both of them for what they were. Parasites feeding on the illusion of control. Karen wasn't satisfied with Dad's love. She needed obedience. And Dad? He was addicted to being needed by her. They were perfect in the worst possible way. For a couple of weeks, I refused to go to visitation, didn't answer his calls, ignored his texts. Mom got warning letters from his lawyer about custody violations. She looked ready to crumble, but I told her not to worry. They can't punish truth, I said. I didn't realize how naive that sounded, until the court threatened to fine her. So I went back. But this time, I had a plan. Karen was pregnant again by then, this time with Dad's actual child. Her epilepsy meant no stress, which she interpreted as a free pass to act like a queen. Dad doted on her, fetched her snacks, fluffed her pillows, and scolded us if we didn't jump fast enough when she barked orders. She'd lounge on the couch, remote 3 inches from her hand, and still snap her fingers at me. Be a gentleman. Help a pregnant woman. The first few times I ignored her. Then she started poking harder. Your mother clearly didn't teach you respect, she'd sneer. One day, she crossed the line. She said, maybe that's why your dad left her. She couldn't raise men. Something in me went dark. I stood there, staring at her, and said quietly, you're not even raising your own kid. You stole someone else's. Her face twisted, and she screamed for Dad. He came storming in, chest puffed, voice booming. Apologize to your stepmother. She's not my stepmother, I said. She's a homewrecker. That was it. The snap. His palm cracked across my face so fast I didn't even process it at first. My cheek stung, my ears rang, and I hit the ground hard. Karen stood behind him, smirking, whispering, see? He needs discipline. Ryan came charging down the stairs, fists clenched, but I held up a hand. Don't. I wasn't going to give them the scene they wanted. I just got up, stared Dad dead in the eye, and said, you hit the wrong kid, man. The one who deserves it is right behind you. I walked upstairs, locked the door, and sat on my bed, shaking, not from fear, but fury. The slap didn't break me. It woke me up. That night, I made up my mind. They wanted me silent, obedient, ashamed. Instead, I was going to make sure everyone saw them for what they really were. Not a family, not victims. Just frauds with perfect smiles and rotting souls. The revenge wouldn't be fast. It had to sting slow, public, humiliating, undeniable. And I already knew exactly where to start. I didn't want to turn into those movies where the kid goes full vigilante, but I also wasn't going to sit on my hands while they rebuilt their perfect little lie. Ryan and I talked for hours in the garage, whispering like conspirators, while Mom pretended to sleep upstairs. We weren't planning murder or arson. We were planning humiliation. Slow, precise, undeniable humiliation that didn't require us to get arrested to hurt them where it counted. Their image. First move was simple and stupidly effective. Receipts. After the cigarette stunt at therapy, I'd taken a picture of the receipt I found in Karen's purse and saved it. Later, I started collecting more. Tiny things she dropped in the open, nasty little lies she bragged about to coworker friends on social media. The hotel charges from the business trips that always came on Saturdays. Ryan pulled 2 nights of surveillance from the security camera at the corner store where Karen swore she'd just been buying milk. It showed her at midnight, the same night Dad worked late. The footage wasn't cinematic, just a woman with a stroller and a bag, but the pattern was there. We printed everything, not in color, not fancy, just grainy black and white pieces of truth thrown together. The 7-Eleven receipt, a hotel tab with the same weekend dates as his conference, screenshots of Karen texting our neighbor that she'd get the boys in line, and laughing emojis to Dad. We stapled it to envelopes and dropped them in mailboxes at his office building and 2 of his sales clients' storefronts. No signatures, no threats, just facts laid out in a way people couldn't ignore. Then we did the photo. Remember that one big happy family banner Karen loved? She'd pinned it up in the living room like a prize. One Saturday, while Dad was at work and Karen was, predictably, napping because doctor says rest, we crept in and slipped a stack of photocopies of receipts under the banner, taped them where they'd be seen if anyone took a picture. Small. Dumb. The kind of petty theater that looks stupid until 1,000 people see it on someone's phone. They noticed within 2 days. Dad's phone started blowing up. HR texts, clients asking awkward questions, a manager forwarding an envelope to an executive. Karen drove around the neighborhood like a queen who'd lost her crown. You could see the claws come out. For someone who'd built her whole persona on being untouchable, it crushed her. Their reaction was exactly what Ryan and I hoped for. Fury, then parade, then panic. Karen screamed at Dad in the driveway until the neighbors called the cops. Dad, who used to be composed and smooth, looked small, red-faced, pacing, shouting about harassment and false accusations. He called Mom a dozen times in an hour, trying to spin it into victimhood, but she didn't pick up. She was downstairs looking at me like I'd handed her a weapon, and she could finally fight. That night, Mom saw the bruise on my ribs, purple slee, a map of where his hand had landed. I'd hidden it for days, putting on hoodies and downplaying it. But when she touched it, something in her snapped the way glass does under pressure. She didn't cry at first. She made the call. She called the child welfare hotline and the school counselor, and she filled out the report with a steady, clinical voice, as if she were reading a grocery list. Not because she wanted trouble for Dad, because she wanted protection. She wanted it documented. The words she used were simple and clean. My son was struck. There's a history of coercion. I'm concerned for the boys' safety. It wasn't pretty. Later that week, a social worker sat on Karen and Dad's couch, while Dad tried to look like the doting father, and Karen clutched her belly and faked tears. The worker asked questions, took notes, and didn't smile when Karen started to cry crocodile tears. They did a welfare check, asked for medical records, asked to see our bruises. Dad's face went from bluster to brittle in minutes. He kept repeating, "This is overblown," as if words could stitch a fracture. Watching him uncurl from his performance, watching the man who had been my anchor turn into a jittering mess, felt like a quiet victory. But it also felt raw and dangerous. We'd opened a door that couldn't be closed. Karen watched me like a hawk after that, eyes wild and always calculating the next strike. She started leaving the house more, meeting with women from work in public, bringing a crowd into their private theater. The war had moved off the couch and into the street, and there was no going back. They didn't fold. They exploded. After the welfare visit, we should have been able to breathe. Instead, Karen went ballistic. Not the quiet kind, the public, theatrical kind that wants an audience. What started as whispered texts and sleazy looks at the grocery store turned into full-on, nightly sabotage. First it was small, my mom's car window egged, a tire slowly deflating overnight, a nasty note tucked under the windshield wiper calling my mom crazy and a liar. Then the trash can in our driveway got slashed, contents scattered like confetti of humiliation. Somebody keyed the side of Mom's car. Ryan swore he'd seen a woman in a gray hoodie by the alley. The night the tire went down. He couldn't prove it, at least not yet. They tried the legal route next. Karen filed for a temporary restraining order, claiming harassment, claiming the envelopes were threatening communications, and that Dad was being targeted at work. She sat at the front of the courtroom, clutching her belly like a martyr, and told half-truths that smelled like strategy. Dad stood behind her, jaw tight, reading from the same script he'd used when he announced the affair. "We want peace for our child." The judge granted a temporary order, just to keep everyone separated while the mess cooked. It felt like a slap. Us silenced by court ink, because the woman who'd invaded our life learned how to play the victim well. But the meanest thing she did was social. Karen set fire to our reputations. She started posting selective screenshots, edited photos, and fake testimonials from neighbors who suddenly remembered our family drama. People at Dad's work got forwarded a glossy, edited dossier portraying us as unstable, manipulative, and dangerous to the baby. A few clients pulled small contracts until things calmed down. Dad's smirk turned brittle. He called me twice, pleading, trying to get me to stop making things worse. I didn't pick up either time. Then came the night that felt like the old life died for good. I got home from a late shift at the diner and found Mom standing on the porch, white-faced, phone in hand. Her car window was smashed, not just keyed this time, the glass was spider-webbed and raining into the back seat. She said, flat and stunned, "They broke it." She didn't cry. She never did in front of us anymore. Instead, she did something I'd never seen. She walked to the neighbor's door, asked to borrow their Ring camera footage, and made them watch it with her. The camera caught a figure, hoodie up, limp stroller, moving slow down our street at 1:12 a.m. The neighbor's face went from pity to anger in seconds. That footage changed everything. It gave us a thread. We handed it over to the social worker and to a cop who finally looked like he believed us. The same footage, paired with the receipts and the envelopes, began to stitch a story, one that led away from us and back to Karen. Dad's calls dwindled. His excuses started to sound hollow on voicemail. Karen's brave face cracked during a lunch at a cafe when two of Dad's clients walked out after spotting her in a post online that exposed her lies. She stood up, knocked over the sugar caddy, and screamed until the manager escorted her out. People were starting to see the drama for what it was: performance. Through it all, Mom changed. The woman who'd once sat in the dark and wait for him to return began to move like someone sharpening a knife. She registered complaints. She documented everything: dates, times, bruises, bells, and whistles of proof. She learned to speak in facts instead of pleas. It wasn't pretty or clean, but it was turning into armor. I watched her from the doorway one night while she filled out another incident report. Her hands trembled just a little, but her voice was steady. For the first time since the affair, it felt like we weren't just surviving the chaos, we were outfitting ourselves for it. And Karen? She was getting messier and meaner because she knew the walls were caving in, and she was trying to shove debris at anyone close enough to see the collapse. By the time the restraining order expired, the damage was already done. Not to us, but to them. Dad's world had collapsed in slow motion, one public crack at a time. CPS hadn't pressed charges, but their report stayed open. His company put him on leave, pending review. Karen's coworkers avoided her after her outbursts went viral. A phone recording of her cafe meltdown had been posted online by some random bystander. Watching her throw sugar packets at the wall and shriek about lies became a neighborhood meme. For once, the gossip wasn't about Mom, it was about them. Dad tried to spin it, of course. He came by one afternoon, alone, wearing the same sales smile he used to fool clients. He stood on our porch, eyes bloodshot, voice trembling just a little. "I just want to make things right," he said. "We've all made mistakes." Ryan laughed out loud. "You made them for 5 years straight." Mom didn't even open the door. She just looked through the screen and said, "You made your choice, and now you're living with it." Then she shut the door in his face. No yelling, no drama, just finality. After that, he stopped coming. He still sent the occasional "thinking of you" text, but they read more like guilt than love. Karen, though, she couldn't stand losing control. Word spread that she'd started having panic attacks. She'd call Dad at work, screaming that the boys were ruining her life. The stress triggered her seizures more often. Eventually, Dad stopped pretending everything was fine. The perfect facade was gone. Just two broken people clinging to the wreckage they built. Meanwhile, things at home shifted. For the better. Mom started laughing again, quietly at first, then louder, like she was remembering how. The weight she'd carried for years seemed to melt a little each week. That's when Mark showed up. He wasn't flashy, he was just decent. A guy from Mom's work who fixed things without being asked. He didn't try to be our dad. He just showed up, steady, kind, no agenda. I remember one night he helped Mom fix a leaky pipe under the sink. When it stopped dripping, he wiped his hands, smiled, and said, "Not perfect, but better than before." That line stuck with me. Better than before. Ryan and I both liked him, which was weird at first. After everything with Dad, trust felt dangerous. But Mark never pushed. He treated us like people, not projects. And for the first time in years, the house felt safe. Dad must have found out about Mark, because one night he called, voice slurred, angry. "You're replacing me," he spat. I answered calmly, "No, Dad. You replaced yourself a long time ago." Then I hung up. The next morning, I deleted his number. Now, months later, Mom smiles more than she frowns. Ryan's working on his college applications. And me? I'm just counting down the days until I graduate and start fresh somewhere that doesn't smell like old lies. Dad and Karen still live across town, but they might as well be ghosts. Their names don't echo in our house anymore. Their stories don't control the air we breathe. Sometimes I drive past Dad's old office, the one where all the lies started. The sign's faded now, the windows are dusty. I don't feel anger anymore, just distance. Because in the end, Dad got exactly what he built, a house full of silence, a wife who plays victim to an empty room, and two sons who will never call him father again. And Mom? She got peace, real, quiet, earned peace. The kind no one can take away this time.